Joe Rogan is a cultural icon, being one of the most well-respected guys out there, at the top of his game in UFC, comedy, and podcasting. However, the brutal honesty, authenticity, and energy that makes him so successful also brings with him some enemies. And when Joe has a problem with you, the whole world knows about it. Take, for example, Adam Conover, a painfully unfunny
Hey, I used to watch this show back in the day.
comedian and TV host who really appeared to get in the host's nerves. Best known for his role on Adam Ruins Everything, Conover certainly ruined his reputation, or whatever little remained of it, when he appeared on Rogan's podcast back in 2019. When reflecting on this episode, the old phrase fail to prepare to fail springs to mind. That's because although Adam was eager to discuss numerous meaty topics, he was a little unprepared to defend his positions. The drama unfolded as soon as the two men started discussing transgender rights. Adam, very much a pro-trans activist, spoke in favor of giving children as young as 7 hormones.
You're seeing folks transition much earlier age. If someone is, transitioning from the age of 7 years old, right? Working with those hormones, from that age, right? They're not going to have, their body situation is going to be very different than the one that you postulated, right?
Rogan pushed back.
I mean, there's been more scientific evidence that points that if kids don't do that, then when they wanted to be trans at an early age, they just become gay men. And that there's nothing wrong with that either. There's no reason to give kids hormones, and there's no reason to decide before a person's frontal lobe is completely fully developed, which doesn't even take place till like 25. People don't know who they are. A 7-year-old, you won't even. People don't even give their 7-year-old phones. You don't let them vote. You're going to let them decide what sex they're going to be for the rest of their life.
Hey, okay, so thank you, Joe. I ain't gonna lie. He said how I be feeling about that. Like when people were talking about that, he said how I felt. Thank you. God, I ain't even see this podcast, but thank you for saying that. God damn.
Adam gave
I be hating
anecdotal
that shit.
evidence, but not scientific evidence to support his stance, discussing a friend of his who believed it was only right to respect the decision of their young boy to identify as a girl.
Yeah, but if that's who they are, if they think that they're a girl, why do you have to give them hormones to make them more of a girl?
The two men also discussed gender in sports and the involvement of transgender athletes. Yet again, they proceeded to clash heads.
There's a reason why we make the distinction to have male athletics versus female athletics. The reason is that males have a physiological advantage over women. So in most sports, most physical sports, we do not have males compete with females. The question becomes when someone who is male transitions and becomes female, do those same physiological advantages apply?
And it became increasingly evident that Adam actually lacked any substance. He had no knowledge on anything he was talking about. His assertions that sports favored male bodies and that making slight rule adjustments could establish gender equality were met with a healthy dose of skepticism from Rogan. Adam just kept resorting to saying his trans friends, which seemed really insincere and only added to the overall confusion surrounding this whole discussion. Nevertheless, Adam advocated for co-ed competitions as a means to address the apparent prejudice inherent in the current supposedly male-dominated sports system. But what Adam failed to point out was the very real physical differences between men and women. And these differences would likely create an uneven playing field, as almost everybody knows. I mean, a few years ago in the world of MMA, a trans fighter by the name of Fallon Fox broke the jaw of a biological female during a contest. The brutal beating was met with outrage and was discussed by Rogan on another episode of his podcast. Commenting on the incident, Rogan said, "She calls herself a woman, but I tend to disagree. She said she used to be a man, but now that she's had surgery, she's a transgender, which is the official term that means you've gone through, right? And she wants to be able to fight women in MMA. I say no f***ing way. I say if you had a at one point in time, you also have the bone structure that comes with having a you have bigger hands, you have bigger shoulder joints, you're a f***ing man. That's a man, okay?" And although Adam did acknowledge his lack of expertise on the matter, he emphasized the importance of consulting transgender individuals to gain a more comprehensive perspective. But it didn't even stop there. The conversation just got worse and worse and worse. And one of the final nails in the coffin for Adam's reputation was when the men clashed over the idea of toxic masculinity.
When you look at the way that we bring up men are socialized to not have close relationships with each other. You know?
Really?
What was this? So what about sports? What about anything to do with a team effort? Like, come on, how you go? What? Okay, I see it. That was okay. Hey.
Yeah.
Adam said that men are conditioned not to have friends, and this toxic conditioning was to blame for the loneliness epidemic and high suicide rates.
Researchers have found this, that little boys, when they're very young, are very close form very close friendships that are physical friendships. They hug, they'll kiss, they'll.
What?
You know, kiss on the cheek. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll have physical close friendships
I
like that.
don't know about that
And then
one.
they reach an age where that starts to become not okay, right? Where it becomes, oh, that's not how boys act, right? And girls are still doing that with their friends. They're still holding hands with their friends. You know, they're still, you know, having close relationships like that. And boys start to build a little bit of distance. You know,
I don't experience that. I
Yeah, I'm with Joe. I would have fought back like a motherfucker on this podcast. I ain't gonna lie. You ain't finna come on there and just start saying all this wild shit and I ain't gonna say nothing. No,
most of my friends that I know have good male friends.
I'm
They're
saying.
pretty tight with people.
Eventually, Adam, who was humbled and humiliated, left with his tail firmly between his legs. Since the podcast, things haven't gone much better for Adam. His most recent project, the Barack Obama directed G-Word, was a complete flop. It saw the host desperately trying and failing to restore viewers' faith in big government. Adam is
You ate the hamburger?
Yeah.
What up, man?
All right. Oh, okay.
seems finally does ruin everything. Another person who was known better days is Candace Owens. Like Adam,
she went
also
on
knows what it's
JRE?
like to get a severe tongue lashing from America's most famous podcaster, who ended up getting in one of the most heated arguments in the entirety of Joe Rogan history. In 2018, the conservative
I didn't know
pundit
she
appeared
went
on
on
the
one.
Joe Rogan Experience, and on the topic of climate change, she and Rogan had a big disagreement. In short, Rogan believed it was real, Owens did not.
How don't you believe climate change is real? Like, I don't understand that. Like, all the evidence points toward is real. Like, even if you just think about it, even if I was about to say, see, I know how people argue against it right now. That's why I fumbled on the words, but I say that's why winters is getting hotter and hotter. But people will come out right now. Oh, this the coldest winter we done had in 20 years or something like that. That's the argument they'll come out with. And you just gotta be like, bro, no, you gotta look at from back then, blah blah blah. Yeah, they'll be aggravating. That's how they'll fight it. They'll be like, oh, this specific time right here is as cold as it's ever been. Damn, like, damn. Oh god, that'd be so aggravating to argue, bro. I ain't gonna lie, that'd be an aggravating argument. Trying to argue that, to try to prove that you right about this, because with that, it's not facts. It's basically all they believe in is feelings at that point. Like, all they basically arguing is feelings, and you can't argue that at all.
I fell victim to the idea that like it was progress, we have to care about the environment, it was progress, and it's like, no, like we've been losing, America has been losing.
You don't think we have to care about the environment? Like, what do you,
No, not even a little bit. Like,
not even a little bit?
no. Okay, let me clarify this. I don't throw trash on the ground. Like, I'm
Okay.
not saying like we need to like, you know, trash the environment. Like, but do I believe in climate change? No.
Owens then proceeded to explain how the climate is always changing, and claimed that the Paris Climate Accord was just a way to extract dollars from Americans, an argument that rages all across America.
But this is an incredibly
See, this is another problem. Like, it's them that'll cause the problem for us, or the people behind us at this point. Like, bro, we gotta fix y'all problem from the shit y'all did for to us. Y'all enjoyed all the benefits. Now we gotta fix the damn problem. Like, that's another thing that's
subject.
activating.
Right.
And if you would have to talk to a bunch of different scientists and see how they gather data and see what they understand about CO2 levels and what's the danger of them
Right.
and what can combat it and what could not. Have you done all this, or
No,
do you
so I
take
think-
this flippant opinion
No, it's
based
listen,
on the
I'm
party
not. This
line?
is not.
Owens, obviously taken aback that she was now in a full-blown argument with Joe Rogan, claimed,
This wouldn't be the hill I died on, right? But it's not about the part. I just genuinely, I've read a ton about it, but
What
I
have
would
you
not be
read?
able to. I would not be able to come to you and say like, this is my strong opinion. But here's like the easiest way to say this, right?
Okay.
The fact that there is a disparity in the science community about whether or not it's real is enough
It's
to.
very little.
Yep.
Very little.
What? What? Just because it's supposed to be like that. What is you talking about? Just because it's not 100%? Like, what? In the science, nothing is 100%. Like they always say it's 99.9%. It's nothing is 100%. Like, bruh, like in science, they would not say the sky is blue. They would say, yeah, it's blue, but it's not in we they ain't gonna put 100% on it. They not guaranteeing that it's blue. Like so for her to be like, oh, it's divide. No shit. That's what it's supposed to do. Like, come on now.
disparity.
But-
Most scientists, the vast majority, agree that human beings are negatively affecting climate change.
Yeah.
The vast majority.
Yeah, I just don't think so.
Joe Rogan keeps getting more and more irritated throughout this whole conversation about her misrepresenting the issue, and that the idea of climate change is not propaganda drummed up by some sort of big business. So Rogan asks her why she has such a strong stance on climate change. If you don't have a background in it, you don't understand the science. So Owens responded by saying she felt that the whole issue had been politicized, and this had prompted her lack of belief in it.
Yeah.
But don't say you don't believe.
Yeah.
Learn about it.
Yeah.
Learn about it and then have an opinion. But you're stating this opinion without having any real understanding of
Right.
what climate
Well, yeah,
science
because
is.
it's
And it's funny because she can't argue how she want to argue for real, because she need Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan don't need you. Like, you need Joe Rogan, so you can't go in on Joe Rogan. You gotta be respectful and all that. You gotta play it a little safe. But Joe Rogan can go in on you the whole time.
Back when she appeared on
want to.
Rogan, Owens was a rising star in the conservative space. Now though, it does seem like her star is dipping a little. Of course, she's not a flop at all by any means, and she's got her own show on the Daily Wire, but she is starting to find herself more isolated, largely because she has a history of putting her foot in her mouth. She once said that a certain someone from Germany was an okay leader until he tried to globalize, which many found questionable. More recently, she's had a bitter feud with Ben Shapiro, splitting her popularity within the conservative space, due to Owens' coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. Not to say Ben Shapiro or any of these other people are better, but she's definitely becoming isolated in the commentary space amongst conservatives, with Ben Shapiro blasting her quote faux sophistication about the conflict, with Ben also saying that her commentary is ridiculous and riddled with errors. But no matter what you think about this, someone who is truly despicable is Howard Stern, and he is possibly one of the biggest victims of Joe Rogan, arguably one of the biggest hypocrites in show business today, and one of the biggest supposedly
recognize
victims
him, but
of
I
Joe
don't
Rogan.
know him.
You see, the Howard Stern of today is very different to the Howard Stern of yesterday. Once a shock jock known for saying the most inappropriate things imaginable, Stern is now a changed man, or so he would have us believe. Last year on his podcast, he proudly declared,
I am woke, motherfucker, and I love it.
commenting on Stern's supposed come to woke Jesus moment, Rogan stated that Stern was a f***ing pioneer.
He was the pioneer. And
Not
now,
yet, though,
and now he's woke.
Emphasis on the was. In Rogan's view, Stern used to be cool but no longer is, which is definitely true. And Joe Rogan knows, as after all, his tumultuous relationship with Stern goes back decades. Back when Stern was cool, Rogan used to be a friend of his, often featuring on his podcast. In fact, the two men used to hang out and even frequented strip clubs together. But according to credible reports, a certain incident at a strip club would result in Stern believing that Rogan had misogynistic tendencies. In an effort to apparently embarrass the comedian, Stern would call up a woman from Joe Rogan's past and question them live on air, trying to humiliate Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah, no, bro. Like what? It say y'all were going to the strip club in 2002, and you trying to bring up, man, go on somewhere, bro. That's lame. I can see why Joe Rogan say, yeah, bro, that's lame as hell, bro. That's lame as hell to do.
Publicly, and get progressive virtue signaling points from doing so.
That's lame
Yeah.
as hell.
What did you learn from Joe?
Well, after that wonderful one night stand, I got pregnant, and
What?
yeah.
What?
And the thing about it is you have to understand.
What?
Joe, you knocked her out.
Are you kidding? Did you know
No,
that?
okay, but
Oh.
you have to understand.
Or daughter.
I never kept it.
Thank you, Jesus.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Ultimately, an off-camera discussion between the two would result in the termination of their friendship. For Stern, he saw Rogan as the spreader of misinformation. I don't listen to Joe Rogan, he said. I know Joe from 100 years ago. We're not friendly any longer. We were friendly at one point, but somehow thought that calling up Joe Rogan's ex-girlfriend to talk about Joe Rogan's past indiscretions was a good idea. It seemed like they were destined to become enemies afterwards. Quote, Joe was a guest one time and I said something to him off air, which I don't go into, but he took offense, added Stern. I haven't heard or seen him since. I think he made the decision that I was toxic for him, and he probably was. And in recent times, their differing mindsets led to a big clash surrounding the pandemic. where Stern would voice his disapproval of Rogan's stance. Rogan, on the other hand, had always remained resolute and uninterested in altering his position. He was open to other ideas and wasn't going to let Stern get in the way of his success. However, Rogan's beef with Stern is just a little different to the previous ones, as Stern was never actually on the Joe Rogan Experience. But make no mistake, Stern is very much a victim of Rogan's. Which brings us back to the hypocrisy point. As Rogan has noted, Stern has built a career out of ridiculing the very institutions that he now shamelessly supports, most notably Big Pharma and Big Government. Stern has become the very thing he used to mercilessly mock. He has become a caricature of himself. On the other hand, Rogan is in many ways what Stern was in the 80s and 90s, original, funny, unapologetic, and beholden to no one but himself and his loyal listeners. Rogan and Michael Malice have rather accurately pointed out that Stern is one of the few media people who have gone from being completely red-pilled to becoming completely blue-pilled, from being an all-out James Dean-like rebel to a centrist, lockdown-loving snowflake.
He's the only person I know who's gone, other than Penn maybe, who's gone from being red-pilled to blue-pilled.
The class clown is now the teacher's pet, and the demise of Stern is as lamentable as it is laughable. But while Stern continues to fade into obscurity, Rogan's star continues to rise. At the height of Stern's career on terrestrial radio, he had as many as 20 million people tuning in each day to listen to his amusing ramblings. However, since doing a complete 180, listener numbers have dropped dramatically. Along with losing listeners, Stern has lost all of his dignity. He is now just a dinosaur from the past, representing an old, outdated media. But speaking of old media and embarrassment, it's time to discuss CNN and Rogan's much publicized feud with the rapidly sinking network, including a now legendary on-air with CNN's go-to doctor, Sanjay Gupta. In 2021, Rogan would invite Dr. Sanjay Gupta onto his podcast to ask him numerous questions, including why his network, CNN, repeatedly spread lies about his use of a supposed livestock drug.
Does it bother you that the news network you work for out and out lied, just outright lied about me taking horse dewormer?
They shouldn't have said that.
For the uninitiated, a few weeks before having Gupta on, Rogan tested positive for COVID. Soon after, he told his followers that he was taking ivermectin, a wonder drug that has saved the lives of millions of people.
We immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. All kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone, everything.
Although its ability to reverse the effects of COVID are up for debate, its history of helping humans recover from various illnesses is not. Yet that didn't stop CNN from constantly labeling the drug as horse dewormer.
So, bruh, can't they be sued for that? That's what? I don't even know what. Could you sue for that? That's that defamation. That's not. It's just misinformation, ain't it? Can they be sued for that? I don't even know. I don't know. It just don't sit right with me. Like the news getting it wrong on me personally. It ain't me personally, but you get what I'm saying. Like, damn.
One of those drugs he mentioned, ivermectin, is something more often used to deworm horses.
But when you have a horse deworming medication that
ivermectin apparently given to deworm animals.
Understandably, Rogan, who CNN happily portrayed as an ignorant buffoon, was outraged. When pressed on the matter, a clearly intimidated Gupta told Rogan his network should never have referred to the medication he took as horse dewormer.
It's a lie. It's a lie on a news network, and it's a lie that's a willing. That's a lie that they're conscious of. It's not a mistake. They're unfavorably framing it as veterinary medicine.
The podcaster continued to press Gupta about CNN's coverage, asking,
Do you think that's a problem, that your news network lies?
Well, I don't.
Dude.
I mean, what did they say?
They lied
and
said I was taking horse dewormer.
If you got a human pill, because there were people that were taking it, the veterinary medication, and you're not, obviously. You got it from a doctor, so that it shouldn't be called that.
Prior to Gupta's very public dressing down, Rogan took aim at CNN, asking a guest at one point if he should sue the network.
Bro, do I have to sue CNN?
A clearly angered Rogan asked, as they continually made compilations, doing everything they could to take Rogan off air, doing every cancellation attempt, making Joe Rogan trend on Twitter with everyone hating him around the world, trying to silence his voice.
They're making it up. They keep saying I'm taking horse dewormer. I literally got it from a doctor. It's an American company. Mm-hmm. They won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for use in human beings.
Yeah.
And CNN is saying I'm taking horse dewormer.
Yeah, what? So
They must know that that's a lie.
there's a lot of people saying it.
However, instead of offering an apology to Rogan, CNN instead chose to double down. In a statement to the Washington Post, the media network declared the only thing CNN did wrong was bruise the ego of a popular podcaster who pushed dangerous conspiracy theories and risked the lives of millions of people doing so.
But bro, you lying on this man. You just lied on this man. What you talking about? You saying he take horse dewormer when he ain't taking it?
Clap back,
Come on,
calling
man.
CNN dishonest and accusing the network of attempting to silence him and censor his show. He also called out Gupta's colleagues, Brian Stelter and Don Lemon, personally, saying,
And your show's fucking terrible.
That's right.
Well,
They suck.
Brian
They're terrible at their
Stelter's
job.
show keeps slipping and slipping and slipping in the ratings.
He's the worst. And you know
Same
what they
with Don
do?
Lemon. It's the same thing.
They-
Everybody knows that they're not real. They're not real humans.
he even had to leave CNN. All of these people are declining because no one trusts them anymore. They're outdated, and everyone knows they're completely controlled and inauthentic. And it's safe to say Joe Rogan really isn't a fan of inauthentic people, and really helped to put the final nail in the coffin of CNN's reputation. And it's safe to say Joe Rogan really isn't a fan of inauthentic people, especially Carlos Mencia, who's undoubtedly his most notable victim. An American comedian and much despised joke thief, Mencia is widely recognized for his comedic style that delves into various subjects including social class, criminal justice, race, and culture. In 1988, the
I have
then
no
owner of the
clue who
Comedy
he
Store
is.
played a significant role in propelling his career forward by advising Mencia to change his first name from Ned to Carlos.
But was it Mitzi Shore, who was the owner of Comedy Store, who said you should change it to Carlos?
Mitzi said, "You can't be an angry Mexican named Ned."
This alteration was apparently aimed at attracting Mexican audiences in the Hollywood area. Mencia isn't Mexican, he was born in Honduras. His career started with a lie, and his life on stage would revolve around lies.
So wait a minute. This man not even Mexican, but he trying to appeal to the like he Mexican? The fuck? What?
And deceit. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, Mencia's comedy career flourished, highlighted by a highly successful tour in 2001 alongside Freddie Soto and Pablo Francisco,
I have
also known
no
as the
clue
Three
who that
Amigos.
is.
However,
I'm
unbeknownst
be
to many
real.
of his fans, Mencia was not held in high regard by many of his fellow comedians. In truth, he was widely hated. The Wall Street Journal reported that Mencia, along with Jay Leno and Dane Cook, were among the most disliked popular stand-up comedians according to his peers. No one was as vocal about their disdain for Mencia as Rogan. In 2007, at West Hollywood's Comedy Store, Joe Rogan would actually confront Mencia on stage, accusing him of being a notorious joke thief, where Joe Rogan would angrily recite numerous instances in which Mencia had shamelessly lifted the material of other comics.
You don't know that nobody supports Trump. You don't know that nobody. If someone steals a riff from a song, that's in the news constantly. Motherfuckers steal shit and make it on HBO. They steal shit, they put it on television. What are you saying? Listen, I know you guys know you're acting like a little. No, you're not saying that. Yes.
I ain't gonna lie, I respect that. I ain't gonna lie, I do. Like, I respect that right there. He's standing on it. He ain't just talking about it. He really went to this band's show to call him out. I fuck with that.
They don't even know what the fuck I do. They don't even know what the fuck I do. They don't know
Clearly shocked by this, by the fact that someone actually stood up to him, Mencia looked like a deer caught in the headlights, a kid with his hand firmly placed in the cookie jar. In a famous blog post, Rogan discussed the event and how he enjoyed calling Mencia Menstelia. That's the name we all call him at the Comedy Store, he wrote. And of course, Carlos doesn't like it. And to be fair, it's deserved. After all, a huge amount of well-respected comics would all come to side with Rogan in this debate. During a much discussed interview with the earlier mentioned Howard Stern, the comedian George Lopez noted how Mencia had used some of his material during some of his HBO special.
George Lopez, is it true that you had to put hands on Carlos Mencia?
Oh, damn.
That was a long time ago. That I did.
He stole a joke or something? What
1990.
happened?
They just stole one joke. It was a bit of a, he did an HBO thing and it had quite a bit of material.
In the world of comedy, joke stealing is considered a serious crime.
Oh, gee, that's with anything, bro. You stealing anything and trying to make money off it, pass it off as yours. Like, bro, I would be mad, especially when you steal my joke and tell it to a bigger crowd. Like, bro, that could have been my joke to get put on. And you just go take that? Yeah, I'd be mad.
Mencia is still to this day viewed as one of the most serious
Yeah.
offenders. So how did Mencia respond to this? Well, he doesn't really care. In I Am a Comic, a 2010 Showtime documentary, Mencia openly acknowledged that he not only stole jokes but also intended to continue doing so. Rather absurdly, he drew a parallel between his thievery and rappers sampling music tracks.
A lot of people out there are gonna ask, why did they interview Carlos about this? You know, Carlos is a joke thief. Carlos steals jokes, and we know this. And listen to me, and look at me when I tell you this with all honesty. If you think that I steal jokes, yeah, you're right. Of course I fucking steal jokes. Are you out of your fucking mind? When I come to a comedy club, you better run, bitch. You better get the fuck off stage. Because if anything you say is even remotely funny, I'm gonna make it mine. And all I'm gonna do is say Mexican in the front. I'm like a rapper. I just sample shit and
That's
make it
fucking
my own.
horrible, bro. Like, bro, what? You just out here to go steal these people jokes, bro? Like, bro, that's horrible. Like, y'all cancel culture is crazy. Y'all won't cancel somebody like him, but y'all will cancel somebody that just said a little bullshit. Like, come on, bro.
Was that really my song? I don't know. But it sounds like mine, but it kind of sounds like somebody else's. It's a hit.
However, what he failed to mention was that all musicians, rappers included, must legally obtain the rights to copyrighted material for their music. They don't just straight rip off other artists in the Comedy Store. And because of his shameless stance with this, he's been shunned by the comedy community. And today, nobody's even heard of this guy. His whole career was ruined. And in that moment when Joe Rogan confronted him, everything would go downhill for him.
Okay, good.